Hello everyone, my name is Sabrina Khairunnisa. So today I would like to explain the materials about the 21st century. So these are the materials that I will explain. First, about the characteristic, second about the novel, the third about poetry, and the fourth is about the drama. First is about the characteristic of this era. There are some characteristics of 21st century. First about the knowledge and information. The entire written works of humanity, from the beginning of recorded history to 2003, in all known languages, are estimated to be 85 exabytes of data. Since 2003, with the beginning of social media and user-generated content, the same amount of data is created every 2 days. The advancement of the sum total of human knowledge and information continues to grow at an exponential rate. Telecommunications in the early 21st century are much more advanced and universal than they were in the late 20th century. And about the economics, the shock and awe of the 1990s leads to different views of violence, to a questioning of what seemed to have been stable, to new kinds of narratives, sometimes government-led, about threats to the very fabric of society. The economic crisis of 2008, wars in Iraq, Afghanistan, and the war on terror have all contributed to create the particular atmosphere of the early years of the 21st century. And the last is about the literature. The defining event of the first part of the 21st century was the attack on American targets, including the Twin Towers in New York. This concern to make sense of a fragmented and rapidly changing world is a natural function of literature. Next is about the novel in this era. The defining event of the first part of the 21st century was the attack on American targets, including the Twin Towers in New York. The text had a huge impact in every sense, emotionally, culturally, politically, all over the world. Imaginative responses to it went through a stage of shock, grief, anger, and assimilation. A novel by Christopher Brookmyre, published 2 days before the attacks happened, "There is a Big Boy Did It and Ran Away," was and still is astonishingly prescient both about the violence and about some of its roots and resonance. These attacks immediately become a reference point for artists and writers of all kinds. Previously, in the history of literature in English, writing by women was considered a practice most would now consider offensive. Many of the major writers of our time happen to be women, just as many happen to be gay or born outside Great Britain. Writers such as Doris Lessing, who was awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature in 2007, had alongside Margaret Drabble and Edna O'Brien often been seen as chronicling and documenting female experience. Female-led novels in the 21st century are just as likely to reach male readership as a putative female readership, and they are just as likely to involve genre crossover as anything by a male writer. Hilary Mantel has been one of the most successful novelists of this period. She had a very productive career before her 11th novel, Wolf Hall, won the Booker Prize in 2009. Then, the second part of a projected trilogy on Henry VII's Master Secretary, Thomas Cromwell, Bring Up the Bodies, went on to win the Booker in 2012. Novels of first-generation immigrant experience have not flourished as much as it seemed they might in the early 2000s. Next is about the poetry. Poetry has flourished in the early 21st century, with some poets becoming very significant public figures. Many are, of course, tuned into the changing vibe, but poetry often distances itself from the quotidian, probing the eternal values, although often from the stimulus of actual present-day events. Seamus Heaney, after winning the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1995, became the most visible poetic figure in the entire world in the early years of the new century, consolidating his reputation as the greatest Irish poet since years. Since 2000, many poets have built up a formidable body of work. There are Carol and Davy, current poet laureate, and Simon Armitage, the most likely candidate to be the next poet laureate. Prime among them, if Carol and Davy and Simon Armitage emerge as the major poetic figures of the early 21st century in English, there will be a fair indication of what has happened. Both come from outside the traditional literary background. One is Scottish, the other from the north of England. Both are hugely concerned with the environment, nature, and the world around them. Both poets who write brilliantly about love and relationship. Carol and Duffy became Poet Laureate of Great Britain in 2009 after the decade-long tenure of Andrew Motion, and is one of her generation's most prolific poets, with works espousing feminist themes, that is, the feminine gospels, and environmental topics, that is, the beef, and many works for children. In a sign of how poetry inevitably brings together the influence of tradition and the necessity to find new words for new experiences. And let's discuss about drama. Since the turn of the millennium, there has been a flourishing new drama for the theater as well as for television and cinema. Drama has had something for a golden age, despite recession and cutbacks, and it flourishes in tiny French theatre as well as in the established London and provincial centres. More perhaps than poetry or the novel, drama has been able to resonate more immediately with the vibe, to give voice, verbatim and otherwise, to the urgent social concern of the new century. Sarah Kane is overtly political in her examination of the imminent violence just beneath the surface veneer of society and behavior. She uses television image of savagery to underscore the one-stage action, with the underlying belief that it couldn't happen here, seriously put into doubt. After her suicide in 2000, there was a revival of all her works and a revolution of Kana's plays in modern drama. Her plays brought a driving intensity of performance and imagery back to the theater. So that's all from my explanation. Sorry if I have a mistake when I explain the materials, and thank you for watching my videos and have a nice day.